The municipality of Dysart et al. Since 1867.
News this week that your hydro bill is going to rise 43% in coming years. It is dogging the Liberal government at Queen's Park. CTV's Paul Bliss watching the fallout. Paul.
People are angry. People are still talking about it. And they're going to be reminded of bills will rise about 43% over the next 5 years. That's 10% next year alone.
What people know is they get a hydro bill every month, and the hydro bill is going through the roof, and they're looking at you and saying, what? Another 33%? I can't take it, is what they're saying.
Welcome to our cottage. The building you're in is our family cottage, has been for approximately 40 years. It originally was just an uninsulated 3-season facility. There's a lot of history here for us as a family. 4 generations have been through the cottage. So there was a lot of pressure on, from the kids in particular, to maintain and preserve the building we had.
Lee and Deb came to me with the idea of renovating and adding to the cottage. It was just a cedar paneled home, was never meant to be lived in year-round, I would say. Therefore, there was zero insulation, so something needed to be done.
So we're now standing in the lower level of our cottage. This is really the foundation for the work we did on our renovation process. We raised the cottage up. This was formerly just sloping soil with 36 dry stack concrete block pillars in it. We raised the cottage, excavated it underneath, and that gave us an opportunity to go with modern building standard materials.
So when we lifted the cottage, put a new foundation, ICF foundation underneath it, we allowed the foundation to be larger so we could build 2x4 frames around the perimeter of the building. And then the electricians wired the building in the new perimeter skeleton of the building, and then we spray foamed that and sided over top to give the exterior finish. We added an airspace plus a 2x4 wall, giving us another 3.5 inches, and then the exterior cladding on that. So the wall now would be approximately 8 inches thick with interior finish to exterior finish with spray foam insulation in between.
We have a hydronically heated floor in the basement. Even though it's only 18 degrees down here, it feels much warmer. It feels like it would at 22 in a typical forced air type system, and that's because the heat is radiating up, so it's very efficient. So that cuts our heating costs somewhat, and it provides us with a really nice high-tech base for the rest of the cottage and allowed us to encapsulate the rest of the building in a similarly modern construction technique. So that resulted in not only a solid structure, but also in a structure that will be efficient for many years going forward. So when we did our renovation project here, we focused on energy efficiency and sustainability. And we went into our first winter with high expectations that this would be an inexpensive, easy place to heat and our energy costs would be low. And we got our first bill and we were shocked by how much it cost us. Clearly, we had to do more. We were shocked by our energy costs when we went through our first winter, and at the same time I joined the Dysart et al. Environment and Green Energy Committee. One of our focuses was on conservation. So we were looking for a project to do a case study on conservation. At that point it made a lot of sense to me to use this cottage, because there we thought we'd done everything right from a construction perspective, and yet our electrical costs were really quite ridiculous. For our case study, fortunately that coincided with the introduction of smart meters in Ontario. And with smart meters and Hydro One, they now have a website where you can monitor your energy uses on an hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly basis. It tells you both cost and your energy usage in kilowatt hours. So that gave us a very good baseline for 2010, and we could look at our month-to-month, week-to-week energy use historically and compare in the following years based on any changes we made in our electrical usage. So that gave us a solid baseline. It allowed us to, as we made a change within the cottage to our electrical usage, to go in and validate that online. It's open to anyone, it's very simple to use, and that became a very valuable tool for us. So now, armed with some base data on what our historic energy use was, we went through the cottage and did what we called a plug walk. We went to every plug in the cottage, every outlet in the cottage, looked at what was plugged in, and then we used a little meter called a kilowatt to measure how much energy was used. That gave us an idea of where the biggest energy uses were through the cottage. And some of those results were very surprising. So for instance, we had an old computer downstairs with a big CRT monitor that we left on idle so we could access and look at what's happening in the cottage with the camera, etc. That was costing $20 a month to sit there on idle. We had, I think, 10 100-watt light bulbs outside for security lighting, and they would come on half soft and stay on for 3 hours every night. That was about $16 a month. And so what we did was we went through all those little items and started to look at ways we could make changes without impacting significantly our day-to-day activity. So in the case of say security lighting, we reduced the time on initially down to 20 minutes, and we changed all the bulbs to LEDs. In the case of the computer, we unplugged it. We had a water line that was consuming almost $80 a month in electricity through the winter. We buried that water line, so now we only need to put it on for half an hour or so a day when the temperature is below -10, and that saves us about $80 a month in electricity. There's a series of those steps that we took, and they're outlined in the case study, and the cumulative effect of that was quite dramatic. One of the things we found very effective was chasing what we call phantom loads. So for example, our entertainment system plugged into the wall off, but really always on and always drawing electricity, 200, 300 watts, which is significant over time. So we plugged everything into a power bar. And then when we're done with the system, we just flip the power bar off and the electrical draw is 0. That made a big difference in our overall energy use. And it really only means a minute or two warm-up time for the entertainment system. I'd show you how that worked, but my children who are now paying their own hydro bills just nicked my power bar system for their house. So clearly they understand how effective that is. I'll have to replace my power bar. We're very happy with the results we've had from replacing normal incandescent lighting with LED lighting in here. So for example, in our kitchen here, with all the lights on, it drew a kilowatt of energy with incandescent bulbs. We replaced all the 50-watt metal halide bulbs with 4-watt LEDs. We have the same light level in there, and our energy use with all lights on has gone from a kilowatt to about 100 watts. A factor of 10 improvement. So that means if we leave the lights on, it doesn't really make a big difference on our hydro bill. Since we were using this cottage as a case study, we kept pretty accurate data of what we did and what the impact was. And people have said, well, why are you so focused on conservation? Well, conservation's easy and it really pays, and it pays a lot more than we expected to see. In 2010, our annual energy bill was around $4,750. 2011, we started this conservation program in end of March, and our hydro bill that year dropped to $3,000. Now in 2013, after a few years, at the end of 2013, after a few years of energy conservation, our cost is about $2,400 per year for energy. So over the course of 3 years now, our actual electrical consumption is half what it used to be before. And the biggest thing we notice about it is that we don't notice it. There's no change in our lifestyle. My daughter had been away at university through the entire time, and she knows I'm very energy conscious. She came home, she saw the case study sitting on the tabletop, and she started to read through it, and she said, gee, Dad, that's a great idea. We should do that at the cottage. I said, well, keep reading. And she read another page or two, and she started to laugh. She said, wait a minute, this is our place. She didn't even notice what we'd done, and that was her comment too, that she continues to go up to the cottage. She sees LED bulbs, she sees timers, but she didn't really feel that there was any impact on her day-to-day life. Where we see the impact is in the cost of our hydro bill. Through the course of the renovation process and the subsequent case study we did on energy use, we learned a lot here. Certainly using the right technologies in your renovation and your building make a big difference in your energy use, but it's not enough by itself. On top of that, you still have to manage your day-to-day energy use, and we found by using a fairly scientific approach to what we were doing and measuring and testing that we could be very successful in reducing our energy costs on a day-to-day basis without impacting our day-to-day lifestyle. That was very good for us. We talked earlier about how much we saved in terms of dollars, but really all we did was go from a situation where we didn't stop using electricity, we just stopped wasting it.